back with our reading lesson for the week. I hope you're going to like your reading lesson for the week because we're going to do something a little bit different. I love tall tales. I just love them. And I love the tall tale of Pecos Bill. Remember when we read that last? I just love that. So let's look. We're going to study a little bit this week. Actually, we're going to study a lot this week about tall tales and how to make tall tales, okay? So here's some words that you're going to hear in the section, the little article that I'm going to read to you about tall tales. And I'm just going to give you a heads up. You might want to pay really close attention, okay? All right, so here's the first one. His attempt to save the girl was a great feat of bravery. Now, this feat isn't spelled like your feet you walk on. This is F-E-A-T. What do you think that means? A great feat of bravery. Like a show of bravery. He was showing himself bravery. So a feat of bravery is something you do that shows you're brave. Look at this one. Two basic parts or elements of a story are the setting and plot. Okay? The word elements means parts. Two basic parts or elements. Just a fancy word for parts. The meeting of Pecos Bill and Slewfoot Sue was an unexpected encounter. That's when you meet up with someone or something. You encounter someone. The tall tale was very funny because it had a big dose of humor. Dose. What do you think that means? When you're sick, do you take a dose of medicine? Well, a tall tale is funny because it had a big dose of humor. It had some humor in it. That means not the entire thing was funny, but it had a big dose. That means a big part of it was funny. Because remember, humor means funny. Cowboys exaggerated stories by spinning humorous tales about their heroes. What does spinning mean? Well, can you picture a lady sitting down and she's got her crochet or she's got her sewing and she's making a quilt or she's making a jacket or something, she's spinning it? Well, that means that she's making it. So cowboys would sit around the campfire. They didn't have video games and TVs and phones to keep them busy and to entertain them. They had to entertain themselves. So they would exaggerate. That means they would make them so crazy where you couldn't believe them. By spinning humorous tales, they would make up these funny stories about heroes that they would make up. Now, I want you to listen to this tall tale as I read it to you. It's real short, okay? Boy, what a day. My cat climbed up a 600-foot tree, and I had to climb up to rescue her. Then I jumped down with a perfect landing. I placed Kitty inside the house and zoomed to start my car with lightning speed, only to find out that the car would not start. So I jogged 50 miles and made it to school in just 10 minutes. As I walked into the classroom, I realized that a tornado had struck. Everything was a mess. I quickly repaired all the tornado damage and picked up all the books and papers with just 1 minute to spare. Whew, what a morning. Now, do you think this really happened? Of course not. What parts of that story made it impossible where you just couldn't believe it? There were several parts, weren't there? Do you think he climbed a 600-foot tree? Do you think that he jogged 50 miles in 10 minutes? Or fixed the tornado damage with time to spare to be there in time for school? No. What are some things in that story, Pecos Bill Gets a Wife, that made it unbelievable? Remember what she was doing when he saw her? She was riding a catfish. And then remember they got married and she had that thing under her dress and she was bouncing all the way up and had to be careful not to hit her head on the moon. Those are crazy doses of humor that are exaggeration. So what characteristics does Pecos Bill Gets a Wife and this one about Boy What a Day, what two things do they have in common? They have exaggeration. They have things in it that they're funny, but you can't believe them, right? They have both of those in common. All right, can you get your reader book out and look on page 64 for me? We're going to read a little article that tells about tall tales. Okay? Now, let's look here. It says tall tales. You see that picture of Pecos Bill, and then over on the other page, a picture of Slewfoot Sue. Okay, so the story Pecos Bill. Now, I want you to listen to this and find out as I read how you spin a tall tale and why they're called tall tales. Okay, you listen for that as I read. The story Pecos Bill Gets a Wife is called a tall tale. That's an unusual name for an unusual kind of story. A tall tale stretches the truth so much that nobody is really expected to believe it. Now, here's the history of tall tales. In early America, a man had to be strong just to survive. As a result, big stories grew up about big men who could do big, impossible things. But these impossible characters lived only in the minds of their storytellers. The storytellers were almost always men who wished they could perform great feats. Sometimes they worked at hard, dangerous jobs. Sometimes their jobs were dull. The men wanted to have something to dream about. They wanted to know a bigger-than-life lumberjack, railroad man, a seaman, or a cowboy. So they invented characters like Paul Bunyan or John Henry, Stormalong, and, of course, Pecos Bill. Let's look at the next page. It talks about elements of tall tales. It could have taken a real cowboy a year to encounter the excitement that Pecos Bill met in one day. That was one reason men liked this tall tale character so much. The more impossible the feats he accomplished, the better they liked him. He was the cowboy that other cowboys dreamed of being. However, Slewfoot Sue was hardly the kind of girl a cowboy dreamed of meeting. Adding a big dose of humor to a tall tale helped make long, lonely nights in the prairie pass more quickly. The best tall tale tellers also used colorful descriptions for spinning their tall tales. They wanted to draw pictures in the other fellow's mind, so they used phrases such as, "Her hair looked like 2 carrots sticking out of her head," or "Her bustle was the size of a bushel basket." Find examples of tall tale elements in the story that you just read. If you put them together, you may be able to write a tall tale of your own. So, what is a tall tale then? It's a story that just stretches the truth so much that nobody can believe it. If you were spinning a tall tale, what basic parts or elements would you need? What things would you need to spin a tall tale? You would need a character that's bigger than life, or a hero. You would need exaggeration or impossible feats. You would need humor and very colorful descriptions when you would describe things. So, what's the difference between a tall tale and a lie? Well, a lie is meant to sound like truth, right? A tall tale, everybody, if you're a person who can read and understand, you can read a tall tale and you can know it's not a lie. It's just for entertainment. You can tell that it's not trying to make you believe it. It's just for entertainment. Now, why did storytellers invent these tall tale characters? They were entertaining themselves, weren't they? They sure were. I want to show you this page right here. Now, elements of tall tales. Remember we talked about the word elements. That means parts. So parts of tall tales, things that a tall tale must have. If a tall tale was something you could cook, this would be ingredients. Ingredients of tall tales. But we don't cook a tall tale, we spin one. So we'll have to have the elements, what it's made of. Now, real cowboys liked Pecos Bill because he could do things they couldn't do. He was bigger than life. Pecos Bill was their hero. One element of tall tales is that the main character is a hero. So you have to have a hero. Okay? Now, what are some examples of exaggeration in Pecos Bill Gets a Wife? Do you remember? Slewfoot Sue was riding a giant catfish. She had to keep from hitting her head on the moon. She kept bouncing back up into the sky. Okay, those are examples of impossible acts. Those could never happen. It's exaggeration or impossible acts. So a tall tale has got to have impossible acts. How the author describes Slewfoot Sue's hair. Do you remember what he said? It looked like 2 carrots sticking out from underneath her hat. He used colorful description to describe things. That gives you a good image in your mind of what her hair might have looked like. So in the story, Pecos Bill, was it sad? No. Was it informative? No. It just made you laugh. It was funny. It was humorous. So humor is another element of a tall tale. So in order to have a tall tale, you must have some sort of hero, bigger than life, who does impossible acts. You must use colorful description, and it's got to have humor. These are all things that you must have. Good deal. Okay, so we have 2 work text pages in our work text, but we're only going to do 1, and then I'm going to give you your assignment, okay? So let's look at your work text, page 25. All right, you see that big cactus on there? All right, so let's go ahead and look at this page. It says to read each of the paragraphs, and then we're going to write a character trait that's best displayed by each character. We're going to use it one time. Now there's, right above that cactus, there's a box of character traits. Friendly, cautious, determined, and content. Now a character trait is how a person seems, what they're like. A person can be friendly, a person can be cautious, a person can be determined, and a person can be content. So let's look here. Pecos Bill, that rootin' tootin' cowboy, he figured he had just about everything. Why, he had Scat the cougar, he had Rat the python, and of course he had Widowmaker, the biggest, brawniest horse in the West, a horse that only Pecos Bill could ride. What does that tell us that Pecos Bill was? What was his character trait? He was content. That portion of the story let us know that he was happy with everything the way it was. He was content. So can you write the word content right there on that first blank? All right, the second part says, howdy, cowboy. She grinned wide enough to show off all 6 of her teeth, shining white and pearly. The freckles on her face stood out bold and orange. What was her character trait like? She was friendly. I'd write friendly right there in that blank. Okay. Sue, he told her, I gotta warn you, everything I have is yours, including Widowmaker, but he's a fiery horse, and he won't let anyone ride him but me. If you try, I might never see you again. So what's he being like in there, in that section? He's being very cautious. That means careful. So write the word cautious right there. The last part says, well, those were the very words Sue needed to make her want to ride Widowmaker more than anything in the world. Sue didn't mention it again, but that's not to say it left her mind. She could think of hardly anything else. Well, in that section, it's saying that Slewfoot Sue is very determined. So determined goes there. That describes her there. All right. On these next 2 questions, you don't have to write the answers down, but we're going to kind of talk about these just very quickly. Why do you think Slewfoot Sue wanted to ride Widowmaker? Do you think she wanted to prove a point? She wanted to make a notch in her belt or write it on her bucket list that she had done it maybe? Look at the second one. Why did Pecos Bill not want Sue to ride Widowmaker? He was trying to protect her, wasn't he? He sure was. All right. Now we are going to do something different this week. So today is the only video that you're going to have. You won't have one tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday because you're going to be working on writing a tall tale of your own. Now, it's not going to be like a quote-unquote writing assignment where I'm going to grade all the little bits and pieces and have a rubric and all that kind of stuff. But I am going to grade on these elements right here, okay? You've got to have some kind of a hero who does some sort of impossible acts. You got to have some colorful description, and I want you to use some humor, okay? These are what I'm going to grade on. Now, I've written down some ideas. You can come up with your own. Now, here's a guy here I thought about. His name could be Terrible Terry. He's a big trucker man. He drives a big truck. And then you could name his big truck. Get a like Pecos Bill had Widowmaker, where you could make up the name of his truck. Well, he got stuck in the Pacific Ocean. So then you need to write about how did he get out. And that's what your tall tale could be about there. And you can change it up however you want to, or you can make up one of your own. Here's another one. How about a man named Jalapeno Harry? Well, he could be a tough man who ate all kinds of hot peppers and he never needed to drink water. But then the problem came where he ate a new kind of pepper and it was too hot. So he needed lots and lots and lots of water, but he couldn't find a glass big enough. So how did he get his mouth to cool off? So these are just two ideas that you can do, but you can make up your own. But now before you start writing, make sure that you write down some ideas on some paper so that then you can have your ideas written and then you can go ahead and make your final copy. And you can even draw a picture if you want to. Now I'm going to change screens right quick so that you can see me, and I'm going to show you how I want you to turn your final copy in, okay? Okay, so this is the way I want your final copy to be turned in, and it's due Friday. Okay, you're going to get 2 sheets of paper. I use just copy paper, but you can use notebook paper if you want, or even construction paper if you'd like. What you're going to do is you're going to make a tall piece of paper. So you're going to take this and you're going to glue it or tape it, or you can staple it or whatever you'd like, so that your paper is a tall piece of paper. Okay, make sure you give your tall tale a title up here at the top. You can make it, you can color, you can put stickers on it, you can stamp it, you can cut things out of newspapers or magazines if you'd rather. Some people like to draw and some don't, and that's okay. You can do whatever you want, but just make sure that your tall tale is in here. It doesn't have to be that long. Remember the tall tale I read you at the beginning of this lesson? It was very short. So your tall tale does not have to be long, as long as you have those elements in there. Make sure that you also revise it and proofread it before you write it on here. So go through that writing process that we learned about in English before you turn this in, okay? And that's what you're going to be doing the rest of the week in your reading. If you get stuck or you need some help, just send me a message and I'll help you some, okay? All right, that's all for today.